The long campaign swing began this morning in Washington, D.C., with the first stop in Des Moines. The Iowa Democratic caucus this spring may be crucial for President Carter. Next stop, Portland. The Air Force DC-9 touched down at the air base about 5 o'clock this evening, Mrs. Carter's first visit to Oregon since the 1976 campaign. The First Lady was greeted by Mayor Connie McCready, among other city and state officials.
The only poll that counts is the one on Election Day, and I have never worried about polls. There is no way that a president who is willing and courageous enough to tackle the controversial problems that face us can stay high in the polls. Jimmy has been steady and calm and persistent in solving the problems that face us, and the American people are going to give him a good vote of confidence in the election next year.
From the air base, the motorcade fought rush hour traffic and traveled to downtown Portland and a rest stop at the Benson Hotel. Then it was off to a warm reception by Democrats at Digger Odell's restaurant in southeast Portland. Mrs. Carter is considered one of the president's most valuable political assets, and tonight she showed why. She's a good speaker and a strong campaigner, and she drew her warmest response when she pushed hard for ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment.
Next week, and I don't even know whether this has been announced, but I'm telling you, next week we're going to have a presidential salute to the ERA, a day at the White House. We're going to have an ERA summit. And we're going to have representatives from the national organizations that have endorsed the ERA. We're going to have representatives from those states that have not ratified the ERA. We're going to have representatives from Congress that have been helpful, leaders in the women's movement, governors who are proponents, editors from 34 national magazines who have agreed to run articles on the ERA in their November issues.
More handshakes with Oregon Democrats and city officials, and then the First Lady was off to still another reception. This time it was a $500 a plate fundraiser at the Fountain Gallery in northwest Portland. The dinner, hosted by Attorney General Jim Redden, raised more than $25,000 for the Carter-Mondale re-election effort. The speech she gave was nearly word for word identical to her first speech. Jimmy Carter has been a calm, steady leader, she says, not afraid to take a tough stand on the tough issues. And again, the First Lady was well received. In the audience, Margie Goldschmidt, the wife of former Mayor Neil Goldschmidt, and now a member of Jimmy Carter's cabinet. Mrs. Carter will stay overnight in Portland, and then tomorrow morning she's off to Spokane, and then Seattle. 4 cities, 3 states, and 6,000 miles in just 2 days.
Either not that many people knew, or they had other things to do. Maybe it was the World Series, but the scene at the Benson Hotel before the First Lady's arrival was, well, slow. In the lobby, people talked and met as normal at the bar, and upstairs on the 7th floor where Mrs. Carter would stay, even the Secret Service was behind closed doors. The mood picked up a bit when the First Lady's motorcade pulled up the street. It was a cordial greeting, though admittedly small, and the First Lady's blur through the crowd almost passed unnoticed. But quick as it was, most were still pleased in a calm Portland way.
I got a chance to see her. It was kind of interesting.
I just thought it was interesting that she was here at the same time we were.
I was just wondering why she's out here in Portland while her husband's watching the World Series in Baltimore.
I think she looks very nice and nice person.
Would something like this change your vote on Jimmy Carter?
No.
The next stop, Portland's East Side and Digger Odell's, where Rosalynn Carter made a brief speech. Again, the crowd may have been more press and Democratic faithfuls than Portland throngs, but there was still a lot of interest in the First Lady. Many families even brought out their children to catch a glimpse. People gathered close. The First Lady spent a few moments talking and shaking hands, making friends, if not political converts, with her warmth.
Oh, I think that's kind of neat. As far as I'm concerned, she's the right arm of Jimmy Carter right now. If he wins the presidency again, it'll be because of her.
Were you kind of excited about her coming, or do you care?
Sure. Well, sure. 43 years old and I've never seen a president's wife before, in person.
Then there were those who just couldn't be satisfied.
I don't like peanut butter.
Rosalynn Carter was in town, and the city of Portland was fairly impressed by her, but after all, this is America, and politics kind of has to take a second seat when it comes to baseball. Sorry, Rosalynn, but the World Series is on. On the Night Beat from Portland, Bill Van Amberg, Channel 2 News.
The Air Force jet touched down last evening, carrying the woman many people consider to be President Carter's most valuable political asset. President Carter is weak in Oregon and throughout the West, but Carter campaign organizers have unleashed their not-so-secret weapon, hoping Rosalynn Carter can turn things around. From the airbase, the First Lady's motorcade made a brief stop at the Benson Hotel downtown. Then it was off to a southeast Portland restaurant, packed with Democratic supporters. Mrs. Carter drew a cheer when she announced a special White House summit next week, set up to help the sluggish campaign to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. Then it was off to another reception, different crowd, same speech. Jimmy Carter is a strong, calm leader, according to the First Lady. 120 Democrats paid $500 a plate to shake hands with Mrs. Carter. The dinner raised more than $25,000 for the Carter-Mondale re-election effort. This morning, I had a private talk with the First Lady. She gave Vice President Walter Mondale a vote of confidence, saying he will definitely be the president's running mate in 1980. And she repeated the campaign slogan, if Ted Kennedy does run against the president, Jimmy Carter will beat him. And she blamed the nation's economic woes on the oil exporting countries, not on the Carter administration.
Our inflation rate is directly tied to the price of foreign oil. And there's nothing we can do about it except conserve energy and develop our own energy programs and develop an energy program for the country, which for the first time Jimmy is doing.
We import half our oil. West Germany imports nearly 100% of its oil. Switzerland nearly 100% of its oil. Yet their currencies are strong right now and their inflation rate running, I believe, 3 to 4%, very low.
Why is that? Because they pay over $2 a gallon for gas, and they have always done it. So they can, and the government has taxes in here. So if gas goes up, if oil goes up, like it has gone up 60% since last December, we project a 60% because our price has always been so low. The other countries like Germany can absorb that because their price is already over $2 a gallon.
The Oregon primary is not until May, but Mrs. Carter's campaign trip today shows that campaign organizers believe Oregon is important to the president, and it's not too early to start the push in the West. President Carter himself will visit Oregon November 30th. At the Portland Air Base, this is Stan Wilson reporting, Channel 2 News.